What's up, boss? This is Abraham's wallet. We span the gap between the austerity of obedience to God and the prosperity rising from faithfulness. Run your home and your dough like a biblical boss.
Hi everybody, I'm in my car having just spent a few hours with Jeremy Boswell at Emmett Ridge Farm. That's his farm that he and his family run. And as you can see, I'm here where there's houses, and you wouldn't be driving down this road necessarily and think there's a farm nearby, but there is. It's right here in Cincinnati. And Jeremy is a real gift to the body of Christ. I talk about being a specialist. Sometimes he's a specialist, and God has sent him down a path that's all about food. But interestingly, his pursuit of kind of sustainable food, what did God mean to do with food? What were his intentions? Has led him down a path of understanding land. So I know that not all of us are going to be in the food production business, but all of us have an interest in food. As we're going to hear from Jeremy, we have a vested interest in food and where it comes from and what it is exactly. And I think that when we're thinking multi-generationally with families, we also have a vested interest in land, because land is one of those assets that can get passed down to generation and not only maintain its value, but actually increase its value over generations. So I think you're going to find value in just having access to Jeremy, knowing him. If you ever do one of our vaunted tours, we want people to come to Cincinnati and tour the place. I would put him as one of my stops if I was going to come tour Cincinnati and maybe talk to large families, go to a men's midrash, etc. Jeremy would be one of the people that I would want to talk to. He's great about the property that he stewards. I'm using his language. Because he really wants people to tour it. He wants them to understand the decisions they make in food production and why. And anyways, he's a specialist. We don't have much access to people like him. So anyways, I hope you enjoy this conversation that I had with Jeremy Boswell. Here we go.
The reason that I want to talk to you is because you have bitten off a big chunk here. You're on how many acres now?
This is 132.
132 acres. And this is a former golf course that you've got, in addition to other land around it?
Yeah, we've got, we're approaching 400 acres that we're farming.
Okay. Lands around.
Right.
Yep.
And we've been at that number before. I've actually started turning down land. I had mentioned before we started on 4 acres.
Yeah.
And he can be trusted with little, can be trusted with much. And a lot of this land that we've absorbed has been basically can you come? People were calling me and say, can you come and do this? And it's tenfold. It's gone from 4 to 400. And at one point it was at the other farm, it was at 400. And that was, to me, just felt like tenfold. Look what I did.
Right.
And all I did was be obedient.
Yeah. So you've got this unconventional piece of land in a really interesting spot. As you said when we were driving around, there's parts of this land where you can hear the highway. You can hear cars going by.
Yeah.
You're like 10 minutes from the middle of Cincinnati. Anybody that comes out here could easily come visit you. You'd never think there's a gentleman farmer somewhere nearby. And what you guys have done with this land is you've got beef cows on this land.
Yep.
You've got pork pigs on this land. You got meat birds. How many birds did you say that you've got in cold storage right now?
Like 6,000.
6,000 meat birds, and you not only are doing animal management with the land. By the way, you could have been a Texas A&M man, you know. But you're managing this land. It was really interesting. I really wanted to get that out of you. What you just said earlier is that the land is your first priority.
Yeah.
And that when the animals, if the animals start impinging upon the health of the land, you got to do something about those animals.
Yeah, totally. Which you don't always get right. I've lost a few of those.
You have ponds on this property that you are maintaining. We went out there and talked about you want them to be places where people can fish, they can have quiet conversations. You've developed what was the clubhouse has developed into an event space.
Yeah.
We're in this lovely like meeting / dining room with some kind of like 1850s looking saloon bar behind us. And people do weddings. You said you hosted a Jewish wedding recently. Yeah. It's just fascinating what you've done with this property. And even the things that you're telling me about, you can envision a farm store. You can envision basically a cafe with a vista on a high point on the land. It's really exciting to me, and I really repeat to me what your vision is. You quoted me your family vision at one point.
Oh, it was our mission statement.
Yeah.
Is to help lead the charge to a vibrant, sustainable food system here in Cincinnati.
Now that's why I wanted to talk to you, because you've been chasing this thing for a while.
12 years.
Because you've been chasing it, when you might not have known us at the time, but when the Lord said go to you, you're thinking, I'm going to lead the charge for sustainable food in this city. So because when a God man chases something like that for the long haul, the Lord gives him insights. Mm-hmm. And he's happy to share secrets with people that want to push in and get his secrets. Mm-hmm. And Deuteronomy 29:29 says, the secret things belong to the Lord alone, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children forever. So you know secrets about land that I don't know. I might know secrets about songwriting that you don't know.
Sure.
But you know secrets about land. So I'm really interested in recapturing a heart for stewarding of land that has been lost in an industrial age. When everybody moves into a city and we think, that house is on a ½ acre. I wish it was on a 1/4 of an acre so I wouldn't have to mow more yard.
Right.
When the Lord's like, be stewards over land. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, let's start with this question, which we started touching on this before. Tell me about what man is, what a man's body is, and how that relates to land.
So we are of the earth, whether we like it or not. That we are of the earth.
He made us out of the earth,
right? And we continue to reproduce out of the earth. And so, if you were to, the human body is stacked up water, proteins, and bacteria, calcium. And that's what your body is built from. Those are the foundational building blocks of our bodies. And those all come directly from the earth. We just pop up from the earth, basically. All of those animals out there that are growing, the cattle that are grazing, eating grass that we're not going to eat, they're converting those proteins and minerals, they're converting them into something that we can consume. Because I'm not going to sit down to a pot of grass, So I think it's essential that if we are of the earth and we are the body of Christ, like I've used this in different times, like, look at your hand. That's the hand of God. That's his hand. His works are done through that. right? And through your brain and your thoughts and all of those things. And we're the body of Christ, and it's being sustained through the earth, all the things that it's providing for us. Shouldn't we be the best stewards we can possibly be of that land that's been providing? It's the greatest blessing, right? Other than Jesus that paid for all of our sins. His land is the greatest blessing. It's what provides. It's the thing that it's his, I don't want to call it, I almost feel like saying manna, but I know it's not.
Well, you were talking about provision before. It's his provision for us,
It is. Right? It's our provision. And it's all right there for us to take and have for free. You got to work for it, but it's right there. So if we're not being good stewards of that, I think we're really coming up short. I don't think that one of the things that I do is like, I'm getting ready to load up 10 beef cattle into a trailer and they're going to die, right?
Yep.
They're going to sustain my life,
right? My
kids and more. I put them in the trailer, and I do this every time. I do them with the chickens, turkeys, all of them. And I pray. I pray before they die. They're getting ready to give their life, right? A huge sacrifice.
Yep.
To sustain mine. And God entrusted that animal to me, and he entrusted that land to me, and I always pray, God, I hope that I made you proud with these. And there's been times that I've had a hard time and I didn't do as good a job as I could have done, and I've always asked for forgiveness at those points. And it doesn't happen very often, but there's been times like it's hard. It's really, really hard, and things don't always go the way that you intend them going. And but I'm always really thankful for that. Of like, thank you for this provision. Thank you for this blessing. And I'm not sure where a cow goes when it dies. I have no idea.
Yeah. Right.
But I want it to be, while it was here, I wanted it to be honored and treated authentically in a fashion that I believe God would be pleased with. Of like, well done, son.
Right.
Well done. You did a good job on that. Keep going, man.
Right.
I got you.
So I've noticed as we've been driving around, you put constraints on the way that you do things because you see yourself as a steward of the King, as opposed to a money-grubbing scumbag that wants to squeeze every dollar out of every animal and square foot that you can.
Yeah.
So what are some things what are some differences about you do what we call organic farming, right?
Yep.
So what are some things that you do that are different than people who these big I don't know if they're pharmaceutical companies or
they're evolving into that.
Or
they're all one and the same, right?
Or food growers. But if somebody goes and buys the cheapest ground beef they can get at Walmart, what's the difference between what you're doing and what they're getting?
The first thing that I would say is the integrity that is in that product. I don't know that there's any integrity in there. We are what we eat, right? If you're eating good stuff, you're healthy and clean and all of that. You're getting
You think that people can get sick just because of what they're eating?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Guarantee.
Keep going.
It's a guarantee.
Agreed. Keep going.
I think the integrity is the main thing. The quality is the other thing. And we touched on this earlier, like a protein. So when I sell a product, let's say I sell you a lamb. You called years ago looking for a lamb.
Yep.
I sell you a lamb. That lamb's been out there living an authentic existence. I didn't just stuff it in the barn and throw a bunch of macro ingredients in there and wish it well and then whack it and sell it to you. The lamb that I would sell you has been out there grazing exactly the way that it was designed to do it, in an authentic environment, doing exactly what it was created to do. At the same time, it's picking up all of the macro, all of the micro. It's connected to the earth, which, being grounded and connected to the earth, it's a thing. It's a physical thing, and now the science is out on it. When I sell that to you, I'm giving you exactly what you paid for. You're getting the whole protein that you desire, that your body actually desires. Maybe even the people don't even know that they need it, but a protein has two jobs. It is for cell reproduction and to combat any and all diseases and illnesses. Those are facts. That's what proteins do. Not all proteins are created equal. So when I sell a product, and I'm actually getting to the point right now to where I'm getting friction and pushback from our price point. We have had to push our price point up because we went from like a 2-year gain where we were making money on meat and then have slipped right back into...
Your costs have gone way up.
Way up. Our feed costs have doubled. Our fuel costs have gone up exponentially. My labor costs, I have to pay my people more money because their costs went up. All of my costs have gone up, and we get pushback on price point. That's going to continue to happen. That's an inevitability. Yep. And the result of that is you will no longer have freedom of choice. Welcome to socialism. You will be completely socialized at the place that you cannot afford to be socialized, and that is at the grocery store, which is the main component of life. You have to have these things, and you're no longer going to have the freedom to choose. And if people aren't willing to put their money where their mouth's at, everybody's aware, right? We're not creating social awareness of imbalances in our food system. We're aware of it. Just the complacency of our country has allowed us for this problem to continue to fester. And the complacency of that ultimately is what's it's gonna rob our freedom.
When you say socialism, you think if people don't make a priority for real good food, that where we end up is basically government-run farms and everything's subsidized.
You're there. We're standing in it right now. It's we always think, and we have these long-term projections of things. The most dangerous part of it is we don't know that we're there. We don't know that we're presently standing in that position. Just one little, and I got away from the documentaries years ago.
They'll drive you crazy.
They do, but they also will depends on the perspective they are shot from. But a lot of them are just efficient deliveries of facts. You can get a lot of information.
Could you recommend a couple?
I'll think about that. Okay. The big one the biggest little farm was one that I just watched.
I was just thinking about that.
Man, that was really cool. It's completely unrealistic. You better have a bunch of cash if you're going to try to pull something like that out. You're going to, that was a massive endeavor, but it was amazing. They showed how the land responded. I really loved it. Food Inc. is another one.
Yes.
That was one of the OGs when I first got into it. I was like, really? This stuff's happening? There's a million of them, and you should watch all of them and inform yourself if you're uninformed, because it will give you a different perspective on what things are happening. I got away from them. I don't get into that near as much as I used to because I'm in action. Yeah. I'm doing it. I'm not talking about it. I'm not revving my engine up. And I would encourage people to do something about it. When something hits your heart, there are doers and there are talkers. Yeah. Do something about it. Make a step forward. And it doesn't have to be the perfect step. It doesn't have to be exactly calculated. Now, you need to be careful when you're moving forward with things, but just do it. Just move forward. When something, you become enlightened to it, confirm and verify, and then move forward.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of practical questions. We got people all over. We got somebody listening in Minnesota or Wisconsin. So they're not around here, but what would be your coaching to them when they're thinking of, we need to buy meat this week? What would you coach them? Know your farmer, know your food. It's that simple. Find somebody locally who's growing food. Find them. They're there and they're dying for you to just participate. And you're going to have to pay more money for it. It's just no getting around that. It's going to cost you more money because it costs them more money. But what is a greater priority in your life? Right. You want a new flat screen, you want more vacations, you want to blow money on a bunch of stuff that is completely irrelevant in the grand scheme of things? Right. Or do you want to secure your community? And if people don't start paying these farmers, they're not going to be there. They're going to die.
if I wasn't, the only reason that we've been able to sustain as long as we've had is because of God, and that's it. That's the only reason that we're still around. Like, I should have closed my doors a long time ago. And we did a lot of things right. Not to say we didn't make a bunch of mistakes en route, but like, we did a lot of things right. And we did a lot of things wrong, but it's because of God, and this is where He's got us, or we wouldn't exist, and no little farms like us would exist at all. Mm-hmm. You know, if you just roll back like 60 years, there were farms everywhere. We all come from farms. We all come from agricultural origins.
Sure.
Because if you didn't grow things, you didn't eat.
You're right.
You know, it's like, for me, it's really close in my family. Like, my grandma and grandpa, all of them grew up. Well, 3 of the 4 all grew up on a farm producing the food that they needed to put up for the winter to sustain their family.
As did all my grandparents.
Exactly. So we're what, 2 to 3 generations away from agriculture.
Yep.
But all of a sudden we've abandoned it.
All the knowledge is gone. Even the knowledge of the value, which is why I'm talking to you. We don't even know what's the difference between a real steak and a manufactured steak.
Yeah, there's big differences there. Huge differences.
Give moms listening coaching. They're going to go to the they're on the way to the grocery store as they're listening to this. What would you give them coaching in the grocery store, just for their health, just to be savvy?
Just make informed decisions, and don't respond to the flash of the boxes and all the lights and the glitter and all the things that, you know, the grocery stores are a huge part of the problem anyway. And I hate even saying this, and I'm sure I'm going to catch flack for it. I don't care. Uh-huh. I used to really love Kroger's. Mm-hmm. It's a hometown brand, right? Yeah. Kroger's. I grew up with it before it was Kroger's. I remember the little Kroger's when I was growing up. Yeah. They own like 2/3 of the grocery store whole, you know, nationally. Yeah, and there's like Publix and Kroger's and all of these things. It's not a proper distribution of wealth, really. Right. They're holding all the keys. Now they can call the shots. They can tell you as a farmer, now we're not going to pay you that. Yeah. We'll pay you this. Yeah. And then it's a slow decline. The farmer cannot sustain. So they have to be able to go to these bigger conglomerates, the big giant ones that aren't even able to function with integrity in their systems. Mm-hmm. It's true. And I hate to say it, and I hate to speak out against big ag. I came from big ag. I think big ag is necessary, but I would just like for them to have the ability to maintain more integrity in their processes.
Well, they would, wouldn't they? If more people bought from local farmers, they would think, well, we need to shape up because we're losing our market share.
Yep. Try to make the decisions before you get to the grocery store would be the best advice. Okay. So like, you're still gonna have to go to the grocery store. We still have a grocery bill, and it still shocks me. Mm-hmm. And we don't buy meat, and we don't buy that many vegetables from there. We buy vegetables from where we can get them from other local producers.
Where you trust the ground it came out of.
Right, I know it. I'm clear on where it comes from. I know the origin story of all of my food. I don't need to check a label because I know the farmer. Right. And whatever we don't produce, we go to other places and we pick it up where we can. So if you have like your protein needs in place, and not all farms are going to be able to provide you with all of the things that you need multiple farmers. It's essential. It's essential not only for you as like feeding your family, it's essential for your local agricultural economy that, like, let's just say I don't do the stuff that I do. I just have dairy cows and I produce raw milk, which is highly illegal unless you loophole it. Yeah. Which is insane.
Yeah, right. It is insane.
And you have to come to me, but then you want chickens, and the guy down the road's got chickens. You should get to know your neighbors. Like, get to know your neighbor. It says this one, love your neighbor. Yeah. We don't even know them, let alone love them. And we wonder why things are out of balance and everybody's angry all the time. Like, we're not living authentically anymore. We're being stuffed into these big box store, margin-driven, systematic approaches to life that disconnect us from the land. Yeah. That will lead to you being disconnected from God, because you can just take a walk out there and you can find God all over the place. It's out there all the time. Right. And then we don't get to know our neighbors anymore.
If we know a dairy farmer, we should buy raw milk. Yeah. If we don't know a dairy farmer,
is organic milk better than regular pasteurized, homogenized milk?
Allegedly. But I have no way of confirming that. Like, I have no way of going to that big giant farm and confirming its origins and the truth of it. And it's the big system that we're all buying from now has been completely discredited. They did it to themselves. They've discredited themselves. We've caught them so many times in lies and twists and spins. That's like, question everything.
Yeah.
Question everything. Like, if you don't just be a sucker, because the suckers are the easy ones. They don't care. They're just going to go in there. Yep, sure, I trust this.
Yeah.
This brand, that label, and I don't think that's safe. I think here's the one thing that they'll never get around is transparency. You'll never get around transparency. Like, I went and bought I had to buy a new hog feeder. I've got a bunch. We didn't see them, but I've got about 70 hogs back there on pasture right now, and I fill up this big giant bulk feeder with feed, and it's like 2 or 3 times a week we got to fill this thing up. And I needed a new one, a bigger one, so I found this guy on Craigslist. He had this hog feeder. I went up there, and I went all the way up to like northwestern Ohio and bought this feeder. Well, the family that I had bought it from, nice house out in the middle of a field, grain country, and I had no idea that this place was even around. You can see chicken houses and turkey houses everywhere. They're everywhere, and it's a region that does that. And I got to talking, I bought it, I'm talking to this lady, and she said, yeah, we own the farm over there, and it's a massive farm. It's thousands of acres. And there are these giant, huge chicken houses everywhere. And this one is like 5 stories tall. And she was like, we just built that one. That's our free range. That's our free range.
Oh, good grief.
Layer house. I'm not buying any of it ever again. Like, there's not, just because they're not in a cage, they're still stuffed in a building.
Box. They're in prison.
So that being said, I'm not opposed to big ag. I'm not against the big ag. I have my uncle who I started farming with, and he's a brilliant, amazing human. I love him. And they grow a bunch of beans and wheat and corn. Well, mostly beans and corn now. And I asked him a question early on when I first started doing this. Like, how can I help you? Like, how can I, as the little guy, as David and you're Goliath, how can I help you? Because I think the answer is in the middle ground. We have to re-strengthen our middle class of agriculture, because it's the one that's taking the shots right now. We're the ones, like the little ones, the little homesteads and stuff, it's always going to be far below our radar that will be viable for any regulation or anything to really hurt. They're not even going to know about it, no matter what you're doing. And then there are the big giant ones that are just consuming each other at the top level right now, rapidly. And then all the middle guys are just getting chewed up, totally chewed up. So when we can figure out how the little guy can help the big guy, because we know that there's a way that the big guy could definitely roll downhill and help the little guy out in a million functions. When we can figure out how to do that, we're going to meet in the middle. And that's going to strengthen the middle class of agriculture. And the middle class of agriculture is the most vital place that we could put our time, energy, money, and love is to there, because that's where security is going to come from. It ain't going to come from the top, and we already know that. And down on the other side of it, like the small homesteads and the really small micro farms, they're vitally important too. But the middle class will always be the heavy lifter of our country. It always will, in every functionality. So when we can figure that out, I think you'll see an impact. Wow. It's essential. If not, I have a feeling that I'm not gonna say we're in trouble. I'm not an apocalyptic person. I'm not a prepper. I'm none of those things. But what I do maintain is I consider myself to be a realist. Yeah. And I deal in fact and fact alone. That's it. Agriculture's in trouble, man. Yeah. They are at a bunch of levels. So, supporting, and I don't care if it's my farm or not.
Yeah.
But if you can find a farmer, go find a farmer, find a gardener, and support them. And it's going to cost more money, but I believe the value is totally there. And if you can help out a small farmer, do it. If they throw an event at their farm, go. If you need to buy something from them, buy something from them.
If they do a corn maze,
Do it.
if they're selling ice cream,
Do it.
yeah.
Do all of it, because and I've had to do that in the past just to be able to cover bills. And they're essential, because you don't get those big heavy hits. Sometimes you need 50 grand to get something done.
What are some just top line tips for people who have any amount of land that they're in charge of?
Well, the first thing that would come to mind, and this plays through my head in everything in life, but especially when it comes to land, is what would Jesus do? How would he manage that? How would he love it, and how would he respect it? This one is heavy for me. He who can be trusted with little can be trusted with much. Mm-hmm. You are being trusted with little at that point. You have to manage it. You have to love it. You have to nurture it, and you have to honor it as a blessing and as a provision that God has provided for you and your family. So if they were looking at, farming, any agricultural enterprise on a small acreage, you can totally do it. And there are models out there that will prove that. They've done it, and it's an amazing thing. We just have to adjust our mindset on things. One of the things that jumps out to me is you have to abandon popular culture.
Yes.
That's a big one. That's the psychological barrier that we were talking about.
Yep.
In the back is what will my neighbors think if I put tomato plants in my landscaping?
Right.
What will they think if I have chickens?
Right.
And we're so consumed with what other people will think or how they will perceive us, which at the end of the day is completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And it might be as simple as we're going to try to create some food on our 1 acre plot or our 2 acre plot to feed our family. But at the same time, your family is going to be working your land collectively together, which will enhance your family dynamic.
Right.
Put your kids to work.
Right.
Teach them to work.
Uh-huh.
Make them work.
Yeah.
Make them take pride in ownership, pride in the blessing that they've received. And all of those things respond, and there's no telling that little seed that we're planting in our children, what that's going to turn into 10, 15, 20, 2 generations down the road. If we're thinking in this flat, dimensional, singular generation mindset that the country seems to be stuck in right now, that's so limiting. That is a massive limiting factor.
You got a gray beard around here named Johnny Phipps that tells the story of living in the cities in Fort Worth and praying for 30 years, God, give us some family land. And they went out and bought 100 acres, and now he has the exciting opportunity with his grandsons and children to go out and learn how to manage land. Say something about how stewarding land and animals on that land is good for developing your family, for leading your family.
It demands it. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than one person. If I was to, just do this by myself, it would exhaust you. Uh-huh. It would exhaust you the same way that the soybeans continuously exhaust the soil. It's going to do the same thing, but it enriches your life when all of a sudden now, I have 3 sons, and my oldest is 11. He's very involved in the farm and in our life, and it just aligns us. I get that opportunity to sit there and stop and pause and explain to him the little things, all of the little things.
Right.
I get to teach him how to work.
Yeah.
It says it in Scripture, if you don't work, you don't eat.
Right.
Right. It's pretty clear.
Right.
Right. And it's just, it gives us peace to where we can, one of our favorite things to do, because we get run over with a lot of people when we're busy. One of my simple pleasures in life is to disappear. Back there at that big lake in the back, we go back there, the gate's closed, and we are separated from the noise and chaos of the world. And you get these momentary glimpses of this euphoric peace of everything's good right now. it's balanced.
And we've got a Western mindset that we need to be educated in a nice, safe schoolroom, learn everything about something, and then we could apply it, and we won't make any mistakes when we go do it.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, in our first house, we lived in a house that was built in 1905. Everything that you could need to redo in that house, we had to redo.
The whole thing.
And I remember we only had one half bath downstairs and one full bath upstairs. And that full bath just desperately needed redoing. And I wanted to redo it myself, but I thought, I don't have any idea how to do this. And I had a friend who came over with a crowbar and started dismantling my bathroom before my eyes. And I said, Matt, do you know how to put this back together when you take it all apart? He said, no, I do not. And we're going to figure it out. And I thought, this is crazy. I love it. Let's go.
Pressure's on.
That's right. So you got to learn fast. And well, I mentioned Clarkson's Farm, a show that's on Amazon.
Yeah.
And you were saying about this guy who took on this farm project. He was also not impeded by his own ignorance. And there's arrogance in saying, I have to be sure that I won't make any mistakes before I move. And I just met with a guy this morning who he feels like the Lord is calling him into a job change. And he's a low man on the totem pole. He's being invited into a business that's starting where he would be a high man on a smaller totem pole that he could grow. And there's something that's exciting to him about that. I would have to learn a whole new set of skills. And there's also something, I would say it's the boy in him that would say, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know that I should do it because I don't know how to do it. Yeah. And I would say that the father would say to us, you'll learn. Just go tackle it. Just get after it. So that's very exciting.
It is.
To consider. How can Cincinnatians buy Emmett Ridge meat?
We have a subscription-based service that's how we function. It creates positive cash flow on a monthly basis. So your family signs up, and then we drop a box of meat off at your house once a month or every other month. You could get a subscription if you wanted to right now. I will cap that at some point because it's one of the things that I have to manage through time is like I have to project, I have to think long term, sure. I have to think down the road. So, and you can run me out of product because we're a small farm.
How do people get in touch with you?
Just go to the website. Go to emmettridgefarm.com. Everything's on there.
Emmett Ridge Farm.
Yep. And everything's completely transparent. If you want to know more about it, just reach out to us. We'll answer any questions that they may have.
Well, I want to thank you for the years of blood, sweat, and tears that you've put into land. I know you did it for the Lord. You also did it for your family, but now everybody's a beneficiary of the secrets, the gold that you dug up. So I just appreciate your faithfulness in doing something that is, I mean, you run in different circles than I do, but for most people living in a city, this is a very hidden something that people don't think about. Anyways, I know God's heart is for land. I know that as his people heading more and more towards last days, we're going to recover stuff like this, which is exciting to me. So anyways, I thank you for your time.
Yeah.